Across the endless windswept steppes of Central Asia, a force unlike any other reshaped the world. The Mongol Empire, vast, unstoppable, and feared, rose not only through the thunder of cavalry and the clash of swords, but through a subtler, almost invisible power: currency. While historians have long marveled at their military genius, fewer have considered the quiet, pervasive influence of the money they wielded. This was no ordinary coin or token. It was a weapon of control, a symbol of authority, and a key to subjugating civilizations without firing a single arrow. Imagine marketplaces in distant lands, from the bustling cities of Persia to the sprawling capitals of China, suddenly flooded with unfamiliar coins and notes. Traders, peasants, and nobles alike were compelled to adapt to a currency that bore the mark of their conquerors. The very money they relied upon for daily survival became a constant reminder of Mongol dominion. It was economic power cloaked in paper and metal, a silent hand guiding the fate of empires. What hidden forces lay behind this monetary strategy? How could pieces of metal and slips of paper hold sway over kings, merchants, and commoners alike? The answers lie buried in the history of conquest, intrigue, and a civilization that mastered both the sword and the mint. In the unforgiving expanse of the Eurasian steppes, where winter winds bite and grasslands stretch endlessly toward the horizon, the Mongol tribes were born. Nomads defined by resilience, mobility, and an intimate bond with the horse. Their early existence was harsh, shaped by scarcity and survival. These were not the people of cities or written laws, but of clans, oaths, and the unyielding law of the steppe. Strength dictated survival, cunning ensured supremacy. It was in this crucible that a boy named Temujin emerged, later known to the world as Genghis Khan. Born into a fractious clan plagued by betrayal and tribal warfare, Temujin's early life was one of deprivation and hardship. Yet within him burned a vision not merely of survival, but of unity. Through shrewd alliances, unyielding discipline, and an uncanny understanding of human nature, he gradually forged the fractured tribes into a single, disciplined force. By 1206, the once disparate Mongol clans had been united under his banner. Genghis Khan's genius lay not only in his mastery of warfare, but in his understanding of systems, networks of loyalty, law, and commerce. The steppe, harsh as it was, demanded adaptability. His armies moved with unprecedented speed, his communication networks were astonishingly efficient, and his policies rewarded merit over birthright, a revolutionary concept in a world bound by rigid hierarchies. But conquest alone could not sustain an empire of such staggering size. From the plains of Mongolia to the fertile valleys of China, the deserts of Persia and beyond, he recognized that power depended as much on economic dominance as on military might. Trade routes had to flow, markets had to be stabilized, and currency, both coin and, later, paper, became tools not just of commerce, but of empire. Under Genghis Khan, and later under his successors, the Mongols cultivated a vision of a connected world. They imposed order over chaos, standardizing weights and measures, regulating trade, and introducing currencies designed to unify conquered peoples under a single economic system. Every coin minted, every note issued, carried not merely monetary value, but a symbolic assertion of Mongol supremacy. It was a quiet, relentless method of integration, embedding the conqueror's influence into the very lifeblood of societies. By the time Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty in China, the Mongols had transformed from nomadic raiders into rulers of a sophisticated empire. Their power extended beyond the battlefield, reaching deep into the economic and psychological realms of the peoples they conquered. A coin in hand was no longer a simple tool of trade. It was a token of submission, a reminder that the Mongol shadow stretched over every city, every market, and every palace. And yet, the full implications of this monetary mastery remained enigmatic. How could mere coins and paper notes wield such influence over vast populations? What hidden strategies lay behind their minting and circulation? To answer these questions, one must trace the story of Mongol currency itself, a story that begins quietly, yet reverberates through history with a power as mysterious as it is profound. In the sprawling expanse of the Mongol Empire, The sword was not the only instrument of power. Equally formidable, yet subtler, was currency. Unlike armies that could be defeated in battle or cities that could be burned, money had a quiet, persistent force. It moved through markets, caravans, and palace halls, silently dictating the rhythms of daily life, shaping allegiances, and ensuring obedience. The Mongols were masters of this hidden weapon. In China, under the Yuan dynasty, paper money known as jiaochao became the dominant medium of exchange. Unlike earlier systems that relied solely on coinage, these notes were backed by the empire's wealth in silver and copper, a daring innovation in monetary policy. Traders who once relied on precious metals now had to navigate this new system, or risk falling out of favor. The paper itself became a symbol of Mongol authority, stamped with imperial seals, declaring that its power was not just economic, but political. In the western reaches of the empire, such as Persia and the Golden Horde, the Mongols maintained coins, but not without modification. Standardization of weight and design ensured that merchants and local rulers recognized their authenticity and value, reducing opportunities for counterfeit or localized systems. Through these measures, Mongol currency penetrated daily life, enforcing a subtle yet unyielding dominance over both the economy and the psyche of their subjects. Tribute became another arena of influence. Cities and principalities under Mongol control were often required to pay in approved currencies, funneling wealth directly into the imperial treasury. This was no ordinary taxation. It was a calculated imposition that reshaped local economies. Markets were aligned with imperial demand, and even rural villages found themselves participating in a system that tied them inexorably to Mongol power. Every coin spent or received reinforced the reality that the Mongols controlled not only the battlefield but also the marketplace. But currency's power extended beyond material wealth. It was psychological. To hold Mongol-issued coins was to acknowledge subjugation, to participate in a system that declared the conqueror's supremacy in an almost imperceptible way. Imagine a Persian merchant weighing silver coins stamped with Mongol insignia, or a Chinese peasant handing over a paper note sealed with the Yuan imperial mark. Each transaction was a subtle act of submission, a quiet reinforcement of the empire's reach. Currency, in this sense, became a silent enforcer, embedding Mongol influence into the very routines of life. Trade routes, too, bore the stamp of this monetary influence. Caravans moving along the Silk Road now dealt with standardized currencies that facilitated transactions across continents. Merchants from Europe to Central Asia navigated a system designed to benefit the Mongols, ensuring that wealth flowed in ways that reinforced imperial authority. This created an interconnected network where the Mongol economy was omnipresent. Every market, every caravan, every ledger quietly echoing the power of the empire. Yet, as with all instruments of control, currency could be double-edged. While it unified economies under Mongol rule, it also introduced vulnerabilities. Overissuance of paper money in China led to inflation and unrest. In distant provinces, unfamiliar coins and notes disrupted traditional trade patterns. And here lies the subtle brilliance of the Mongols. Even in destabilization, they learned to adapt, using monetary policies as both carrot and stick, rewarding loyalty while punishing dissent. By understanding their use of currency, we glimpse the Mongols' profound grasp of power. They wielded it not only with horses and swords, but with ink, metal, and the shared trust of countless subjects. Their coins and notes were not passive instruments. They were living symbols of empire, carrying authority into markets, villages, and palaces alike. And yet, the true consequences of this influence were only beginning to unfold. How did such a pervasive economic system ripple through the hearts and minds of conquered peoples? What hidden currents of fear, dependence, and adaptation did Mongol currency set in motion across civilizations? The answer lies deeper, in the unseen psychological and economic forces that shaped empires and reshaped humanity itself. The introduction of Mongol currency was not merely a practical matter of trade. It was an orchestrated strategy that transformed economies and minds alike. Across Asia and Europe, the subtle power of money infiltrated every corner of daily life, producing consequences that were both tangible and deeply psychological. In China, the Yuan dynasty's paper money system was revolutionary yet precarious. merchants and farmers were compelled to accept jiaochao, replacing centuries-old coinage. Initially, this innovation facilitated trade across vast distances and allowed the state to mobilize resources efficiently. But over time, overproduction led to inflation, eroding the value of the notes. Prices soared, wealth was redistributed unevenly, and social tensions mounted. The people experienced firsthand the fragility of a system imposed from above, learning that economic stability could be as volatile as political fortune. In Persia, the Ilkhanate's monetary policies reshaped urban life and trade. By standardizing gold, silver, and copper coins, the Mongols created a unified economic framework that integrated far-flung regions. Cities became hubs of commerce tied directly to imperial oversight. Yet this centralization also created dependency. Local rulers and merchants now relied on Mongol coins, unable to sustain markets independently. Currency became a subtle instrument of dominance, embedding loyalty into every transaction. Russia, under the shadow of the Golden Horde, experienced a different but equally profound impact. Tribute payments in silver redirected wealth away from local economies toward Mongol coffers. Over time, this influx of silver influenced monetary practices in Russian principalities, changing trade dynamics and strengthening the Mongols' leverage. Even distant European regions felt echoes of this influence, as Mongol-driven shifts in trade and tribute disrupted traditional commercial networks. Psychologically, currency functioned as a constant reminder of Mongol supremacy. For the conquered, every transaction reinforced a hierarchy of power. Coins stamped with Mongol insignia and paper notes sealed with imperial authority were symbols of subjugation. Markets, villages, and palaces became arenas where the conqueror's presence was perpetually affirmed, not through violence, but through the acceptance of economic reality. Moreover, the Mongols' approach created a form of economic dependency that subtly reshaped social structures. Local elites, now intertwined with Mongol monetary systems, became mediators of imperial authority. Merchants adapted to Mongol standards, peasants adjusted to mandated taxes and tributes, and rulers aligned policies with the empire's fiscal needs. In this way, Mongol currency extended control far beyond physical conquest, penetrating social and cultural norms. Yet, the full effect of this influence was often unpredictable. Inflation, market disruption, and unfamiliar monetary practices generated tension, adaptation, and occasionally rebellion. But even in resistance, the omnipresence of Mongol currency left its mark, forcing populations to navigate, compromise, and ultimately coexist with a system designed to assert the empire's reach. The Mongols understood that the greatest power is not always wielded through fear or violence. Sometimes it resides quietly in the hands of the people themselves, in their markets, their wallets, and their everyday exchanges. The psychological weight of currency, its ability to dictate behavior, enforce loyalty, and shape economies, was as mighty as any army. And as we journey into the next chapter of history, we will witness how this invisible power manifested differently across regions, from China to Persia, from Russia to Europe, and uncover the extraordinary ways Mongol currency reshaped the world, leaving an indelible, mysterious imprint on civilizations that would endure for centuries. The Mongol Empire's influence stretched from the frozen tundras of Russia to the lush river valleys of China, and across Persia's deserts to the far reaches of Europe. In each region, the introduction of Mongol currency left distinct traces, both economic and psychological, shaping societies in ways that were subtle yet profound. China. Under Kublai Khan, the Yuan dynasty fully embraced paper money as the official medium of exchange. The notes, called jiaochao, were issued in vast quantities to fund military campaigns and administrative costs. Markets from the bustling capital of Dadu, modern Beijing, to the smallest village were transformed. Merchants could no longer rely solely on coins or barter. They had to accept the imperial paper notes. Initially, this created a surge in trade, connecting cities and provinces through a standardized monetary system. Yet as the Mongols overissued paper money, inflation rose, prices spiraled, and common people faced economic hardship. Peasants paying taxes in devalued notes and merchants grappling with fluctuating values, experienced the subtle psychological grip of Mongol control. Every transaction became a reminder of the empire's omnipresence. Persia. In the Ilkhanate, Mongol rulers standardized gold, silver, and copper coins to consolidate control over the region's fragmented economies. Cities such as Tabriz and Isfahan became thriving trade hubs under this system. Coins carried inscriptions of Mongol authority, serving as daily affirmations of imperial dominance. Yet this economic integration came at a cost. Local rulers, once autonomous, became financially dependent on the Mongol administration, and merchants adapted their practices to align with imperial standards. While trade flourished, Persia's economic landscape was irrevocably reshaped, binding it tightly to the empire's fortunes. Russia. The Golden Horde exacted tribute from Russian principalities, requiring payment in silver. This practice injected wealth into the Mongol economy while imposing financial strain on local populations. Russian princes collected taxes from their people, funneling precious metals to the Mongols. Over time, this system influenced Russia's own monetary practices and trade patterns, leaving a legacy of economic dependency and reshaping the social hierarchy. Markets, taxation systems, and even local currencies were adjusted to accommodate Mongol oversight, embedding the empire's reach deep into the Russian psyche. Europe. Though Europe was only indirectly affected, Mongol currency left its mark through trade disruptions and the movement of wealth. The Mongol invasions of Eastern Europe created shifts in trade routes, compelling merchants to adapt to new economic realities. Tribute payments to Mongol overlords sometimes entered European markets, influencing coinage and the understanding of international trade. Even distant cities like Venice and Genoa, engaged in commerce with the East, felt the ripple effects of the Mongol monetary system. Currency, in these cases, became not just a medium of trade, but a symbol of a world increasingly interconnected by the empire's shadow. Across these diverse regions, a pattern emerges. Mongol currency was not simply a tool of commerce. It was a strategic instrument of control. Coins and notes acted as a constant reminder of authority, integrating conquered territories into a single economic system, while subtly reshaping local economies, societies, and even psychological perceptions of power. Yet despite this apparent cohesion, tensions and unintended consequences arose. Inflation, market disruption, and unfamiliar monetary practices forced populations to adapt, resist, or find loopholes. The Mongols' economic influence, while powerful, was not absolute, leaving mysteries about its long-term effects and societal repercussions. The empire's reach was felt in markets, villages, and palaces alike, yet the true extent of its subtle power often remained invisible, lurking in the hands and minds of ordinary people. The story of Mongol currency is, in essence, a story of connection and control. How the simple act of exchanging money could bind empires, alter economies, and leave a psychological imprint that endured long after the swords had been sheathed. The influence of Mongol currency is not merely inferred from chronicles and stories. It is etched into the physical remnants of the past. Archaeology and historical records provide tangible proof of how coins and paper notes shaped the course of civilizations under Mongol rule. In China, numerous Yuan dynasty jiaochao have been unearthed, preserved in varying conditions, their imperial seals still visible. These fragile slips of paper, often stamped with official inscriptions and serial numbers, testify to the empire's pioneering use of paper money on a vast scale. They reveal how the Mongols attempted to impose uniformity and central control over an economy that had long relied on metallic coinage. Excavations of marketplaces and storage facilities show that merchants carried and stored these notes, demonstrating their integration into everyday commerce and the imperial reach into even the most remote villages. Coins tell another part of the story. In Persia, hordes of gold, silver, and copper coins bearing the names of Ilkhanate rulers and Mongol insignia have been discovered in city ruins and trade centers. These coins confirm the standardization of currency across regions and reveal patterns of trade, tribute, and wealth distribution. Some hordes suggest rapid circulation, while others indicate accumulation and hoarding, hinting at local responses to Mongol economic policies. Inscriptions on these coins provide both political messaging and historical documentation, reinforcing the dual role of money as economic instrument and symbol of authority. In Russia, historical records complement the archaeological evidence. Chronicles and tribute lists meticulously document the flow of silver from principalities to the Golden Horde. Excavated coin hoards, often found in princely courts or near trade routes, corroborate these accounts, illustrating the dependency created by Mongol monetary demands. These findings show how economic control became deeply embedded in governance and social hierarchy, a subtle but powerful extension of Mongol power. Europe presents a more fragmented but no less telling record. While fewer physical examples of Mongol currency exist, historical documents recount the payment of tributes and interactions with Eastern traders. Diplomatic correspondences and trade ledgers reveal how European economies adapted to the influx of silver and coins from the Mongol sphere, highlighting the empire's indirect yet profound influence. Trade records, inscriptions, and even personal accounts, such as those of travelers like Marco Polo, add layers of evidence, demonstrating the pervasive psychological impact of Mongol money. Markets adjusted, merchants strategized, and ordinary citizens responded to the silent authority embedded in each coin or note. Archaeology not only confirms the circulation of currency, but also provides clues about its reception. Acceptance, adaptation, resistance, or hoarding, all responses to an empire's quiet, omnipresent power. Through coins, paper money, and historical records, the Mongols' economic influence becomes vividly apparent. Currency was not just a medium of exchange, it was a tool of control, a marker of authority, and a silent agent of empire. The physical artifacts left behind continue to whisper stories of power, dependency, and intrigue, revealing a hidden dimension of the Mongol legacy, a legacy that lingers in the markets, archives, and ruins of the lands they once ruled. Even centuries after the Mongol Empire's dominion faded, certain aspects of their monetary influence remain shrouded in mystery. Historians and archaeologists have uncovered countless coins, notes, and records, yet many questions linger. Why did some currencies vanish almost overnight, and how did simple pieces of paper or metal wield such profound influence over vast populations? In China, the sudden collapse of the jiaochao system remains an enduring enigma. Paper money had connected the empire's sprawling territories, yet overissuance, counterfeiting, and economic mismanagement led to hyperinflation. Entire cities experienced market chaos, while peasants struggled to pay taxes with devalued notes. Some scholars argue this collapse was purely economic. Others suggest a deliberate strategy by local officials to destabilize the Yuan dynasty, testing the limits of imperial control. Why did such a sophisticated system unravel so catastrophically? And what lessons did contemporaries take from this dramatic failure? In Persia, stories persist of coins that carried an almost supernatural weight. Certain hoards, buried for protection, were said to bring fortune or misfortune to those who possessed them. Legends tell of merchants struck by sudden reversals of luck, while officials who hoarded Mongol coins sometimes found themselves overthrown or bankrupted. Whether myth or memory, these tales underscore the psychological power embedded in currency, a force that could shape behavior, enforce obedience, and even inspire fear. Across Russia and Eastern Europe, tribute payments created subtle anomalies in local economies. Silver flowed into Mongol hands, yet some regions experienced sudden prosperity, while neighboring towns fell into decline. Why did identical payments yield such divergent outcomes? Economists and historians debate whether these were consequences of market dynamics, human perception, or hidden policies imposed by Mongol overseers. These unexplained phenomena suggest that Mongol currency was more than a medium of trade. It was a living force, intertwined with politics, psychology, and social systems. Even today, the full extent of its impact remains a historical puzzle, whispering stories of an empire whose power extended beyond armies into the very minds of the conquered. The imprint of Mongol currency persisted long after the empire itself had fractured. Their innovations in monetary policy, the use of paper money, the standardization of coins, and the strategic imposition of currency systems reshaped the economic landscape of Eurasia and influenced generations of rulers, merchants, and markets. In China, the Yuan dynasty's experiments with paper money paved the way for future innovations in currency and banking. While overissuance had destabilized the economy, the concept of a centralized, government-backed medium of exchange endured, influencing Ming and later Qing monetary practices. The psychological and administrative lessons learned during this period informed approaches to taxation, trade, and fiscal control for centuries. Persia's standardized coinage left a lasting imprint on Middle Eastern commerce. Cities like Tabriz became enduring trade hubs, their marketplaces organized around Mongol economic principles. Local rulers continued to regulate markets and tribute systems long after Mongol authority waned, demonstrating the durability of the empire's influence. By embedding economic control into social and political structures, the Mongols ensured that their legacy survived in the very architecture of commerce. In Russia, the Golden Horde's tribute system laid the foundation for centralized fiscal control in emerging Russian states. Silver flows and taxation methods introduced under Mongol rule shaped both monetary policy and political hierarchies, influencing governance for centuries. Even distant European trade networks, indirectly affected by Mongol economic policies, adapted to new realities, integrating Eastern silver and recognizing the interconnectedness of Eurasian markets. Beyond material effects, the Mongols' strategic use of currency demonstrated the enduring power of economic influence as a tool of empire. Coins and paper notes had not only facilitated trade, but also reinforced psychological dominance, creating a blueprint for rulers who understood that wealth, perception, and authority are inseparable. The idea that currency could enforce obedience, shape markets, and connect empires would echo through history, informing strategies from the Renaissance to the modern era. Ultimately, the Mongol legacy was both tangible and invisible. Their armies may have faded into legend, but the coins they minted, the notes they issued, and the economic systems they imposed continued to ripple across continents. In every marketplace, every trade agreement, and every fiscal policy influenced by their innovations, the shadow of Mongol currency endured, an enigmatic testament to the quiet, relentless power of money as a force of history. While many historians emphasize the Mongols' use of currency as a tool of control, alternative interpretations offer intriguing perspectives on their economic strategies. Some scholars argue that Mongol monetary policies were not solely instruments of domination, but deliberate efforts to promote trade and stimulate economic growth across their vast empire. By introducing standardized coins and paper notes, they could connect distant markets, from the Silk Road to the Persian bazaars, facilitating commerce in ways that previous empires had struggled to achieve. Another debate centers on the psychological impact of currency. Traditional narratives suggest that coins and notes reinforced Mongol authority through fear and dependence. Yet some theorists posit that their influence may also have been empowering, providing merchants and local rulers with a reliable medium of exchange that allowed for more predictable trade and economic planning. Could Mongol currency have been a double-edged sword, both a tool of subjugation and a catalyst for economic integration? Scholars also dispute the extent of the empire's monetary control. In some regions, local traditions persisted alongside Mongol-issued money, leading to hybrid systems. Did this compromise the empire's authority, or did it demonstrate the Mongols' pragmatic flexibility, allowing them to maintain control without stifling local economies entirely? These debates underscore the complexity of Mongol monetary influence. Their coins and notes were far more than inert objects. They were instruments of policy, psychology, and innovation. The true scope of their impact continues to inspire inquiry, revealing an empire whose power extended beyond battlefields into the very mechanisms of daily life. The Mongol Empire conquered continents with both sword and coin, leaving a legacy that endures long after their armies faded. Their currency, paper and metal alike, was more than money. It was a subtle, pervasive instrument of power, shaping economies, minds, and societies. From China to Persia, Russia, and beyond, the echoes of Mongol monetary influence persisted, embedding authority into everyday life. Even today, the artifacts, myths, and lessons of their economic strategies remind us that power need not roar. It can whisper in the rustle of coins and the ink of a note, leaving an indelible mark on history.